October 21st, 2001, Biography with Joan London.
Princess Diana, a superstar who was expected to carry the monarchy into the future. Instead, her life and death raised questions about whether the monarchy should exist at all. It's been more than 4 years since the crash in Paris ended a fairy tale. Princess Diana possessed beauty and magnetism that made her the royal version of a rock star. Tonight's biography takes a new look, not just at her life, but at the image she created, with help from the world's most accomplished designers, photographers, and public relations experts. Diana was said to be a natural-born star who radiated charisma. In fact, stardom was something she practiced and perfected.
Diana, Princess of Wales, was a unique phenomenon, created by the press, the public, the palace, and the princess herself. One woman had an extraordinary relationship with her. She photographed Diana for 17 years.
You feel like you know every inch of her. I mean, I've stood and stared at her ears and her fingers and her feet and her ankles for so many hours. But she was such a good actress and played out the role in front of the camera so much that you felt you knew all of it. But in fact, you didn't.
The photographer's love affair with Diana ended in disaster.
I've always thought to myself, maybe one day someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to get injured or knocked over, or something's going to happen, but I always thought it would be a photographer. I'd never ever imagined it to be her. To be so intensely photographing one person for such a long period is rather a bizarre job, really. It was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and it ruled your life. It's a bit of an obsession, really, I suppose. I mean, you always like a groupie. But you have to be so intense about the subject to do it because it was so time-consuming.
Every public appearance by Diana, Princess of Wales, was captured for posterity. These were the people she saw every day of her working life. Over the years, the princess and the press developed a close and informal relationship. Most of the time, it worked well for both sides.
People say there was such a terrible relationship between her and photographers, and it's not true. The regular people that she worked with well over the years, there was great respect, and we really did like her, and we had a lot of fun with her.
Jane was the only female photographer on the circuit. Behind the scenes and on camera, she developed a particular rapport with Diana.
The look she gave the men was sort of flirty, sexy. With me, I think it was more of a natural, more female-to-female look.
Jane has more than 20,000 images of the princess on the job and in private, on good days and bad. Some pictures reveal the unspoken truth. Some mask the reality.
Brings back lots of memories for me, that doorway and those arches. First time I photographed her was the Ritz Hotel in London in November 1980. She arrived for Princess Margaret's 50th birthday party when she was a guest. I was standing with a group of photographers by the door. We were just waiting for the main royals to arrive, and this girl came up behind us and just sort of said, excuse me, very shy, sort of timid girl, and we all sort of parted the way, and then she walked in the door, and as she went in, one of the Fleet Street photographers said, I'm sure that looks like this woman, this Diana Spencer, they keep saying is Prince Charles's girlfriend. So I waited for hours and hours for the early morning, and it was freezing cold out here, really windy, coldy night, and she came out huddled in this great big green woolly coat. She saw just a few of us here, photographers, and she went bright red with embarrassment, and I took the first picture about here. That was my first frame ever of her. I think I only took 2 pictures. It all happened so quickly, and I never thought that would be the first 2 of all those thousands and thousands.
For Jane Fincher, there was something intriguing about Lady Diana Spencer.
The other girlfriends that we'd photographed him with would always sort of turn up at polo and sit there, and it was quite public. But suddenly this one, everybody went very quiet about her. The secrecy was there and the mystique started. So everybody instantly thought, well, you know, if there's all this hush-hush about her, no one will make comment, it must be the one. It became a big news story and everybody was camping down by her flat at Cohen Court trying to get pictures of her. She was everything the photographers liked. She looked so good and she was young and pretty from the right background and sort of all the bits fitted into the puzzle.
The media laid siege to Diana's apartment in London.
I used to come up really early every morning along here and got to know the area very well. I was always here at the crack of dawn. Well, we used to just sort of stand on the pavement here and stare up at those windows in the hope of a glimpse from her or a photograph or if she was going to wind the window up and lean out or something, but she never did. I think the first few weeks she giggled her way through it and it was funny. After a couple of weeks I think we all got a bit tired of it and I think the pressure was building up behind the scenes too, you know, and I think she started to get fed up with it and the famous Diana head down started.
How well are you coping with all the press attention? Well, as you can see, you can tell. Are you bearing up with it quite well, though? Because it must be quite a strain with all of us after you. Well, it is, naturally.
If it was today and I had to go up and stand outside somebody's flat and chase them around London, I wouldn't do it. Technically, you could say, yes, it was paparazzi, but I think it wasn't paparazzi in the same way you look at it now. Everybody was well behaved and it was just a completely different era of photographers.
19-year-old Lady Diana Spencer worked as a nanny and preschool assistant. Photographers followed her to work every day, but Diana soon learned how to keep them at bay.
She was taking a child for a walk in Eaton Square, a little boy she used to look after, and she came out and there was quite a few photographers there. So she came to a very quick deal with us. So I'll go for a walk, you lot wait here. And when I get back, if you don't follow me and pester me, I'll put my head up and you can take some nice pictures. And that's exactly what happened, and the deal worked.
Such deals didn't always work. Diana surprised photographers by agreeing to pose for them at the kindergarten where she worked. Much to Jane's regret, she wasn't there, but a key rival was.
Halfway through doing the picture, the sun came out, believe it or not, and it just showed us that, well, she was wearing no petticoat, and of course saw these fantastic legs, and it made the picture.
On her first official outing 2 weeks after the engagement was announced, Diana made the mistake again of bearing a bit too much flesh.
I think that both of those occasions taught her really quite hard lessons and ones that she never really forgot. To be really careful about what you're wearing in front of the camera.
At the age of 23, Jane was as much a novice in her role as Diana. She had started working for her father, a well-known photographer who ran his own picture agency.
It was a new beginning for the Royals in more ways than one. The photographs were becoming human, and when she got down and kissed small children and touched their hands, it was a different sort of... and everybody said, "Did you get that?" It was something come to life with the pictures.
In July 1981, Britain was in the grip of an economic depression. A royal wedding was a welcome relief, and Jane was in London to photograph it.
It was a wonderful atmosphere. There were so many visitors and everybody was waving flags and, I mean, camping on the streets waiting for their spot on the wedding day. I think my father said that the last time he'd seen such big crowds was Churchill's funeral, something like this. You felt like it was so historic. London was a complete standstill. It seemed like the whole world had stopped.
Every big lens, long lens, had been hired from every camera shop. All over Europe they've been hired and brought in. Blokes were coming in from America.
The build-up to the wedding was, you know, a bit of a nightmare really, because everybody was like, you know, you can imagine there was weeks of arguing with the media about who was going to be in which position.
It was up to each photographer to secure their spot.
We're all great friends and worked together for years and years, but when it came down to actually working and, you know, the job was to be done, the competition was very fierce.
For the big day, Jane negotiated with the city authorities for a position outside St. Paul's Cathedral. She took her place with 3 different cameras.
It's strange coming back here really, because it all looks so dull really compared to the day. It's like a sort of film set that all the action stopped. And I think in that moment they came out on the top of the steps, there seemed so much promise for the future. We all had so many expectations of this fairy tale prince and princess coming out. And to come back now and, you know, to sort of know what happened, you feel really sad.
But the royal wedding was the stuff of fairy tales. Then Jane found it very easy to provide the pictures to tell the story. The couple went on a honeymoon cruise, and then to Balmoral, where they posed for photographers.
It was very romantic pictures, you know, kissing hands and walking through the heather. She was quite full of herself. It was quite surprising how confident she was that day.
The confidence at Balmoral was short-lived. Shy Di, as the press dubbed her, normally had the photographers scrambling for a full face shot.
This particular occasion, I was on the Westminster Bridge and she was on the pier below waiting for the arrival of Queen Beatrix. And she wouldn't put her head up and I couldn't even see her face. And then suddenly the photographer next to me dropped his lens off the bridge and it fell into the water next to her. And she looked up, started to giggle her head off, right down into my lens. And I thought, oh, wonderful, you know, cover, cover, cover.
With the announcement that Diana was pregnant, the next shot everybody wanted was of the princess in maternity wear. Diana obliged.
The day before we knew that she was pregnant, she went to an event in London and she looked really thin and pale. No way did she look pregnant whatsoever. There's no guessing there, other than the fact that she fell asleep that night in public. And then a few days later, she came to a lunch and she had this huge coat on that looked like a sort of maternity coat you would wear when you were about 6 months pregnant. We loved it because she looked, you know, like a mother-to-be.
Diana enjoyed projecting the image of a young mother. Previous generations of royal ladies had retired from public life during their pregnancies. Not Diana.
It just fueled everything. Everything was getting more and more exciting, more and more interest, more and more demand.
But after the intense build-up to the royal birth, the most important shot of all was the one that Jane missed. The royal couple and their new baby, and heir to the throne.
You are watching Princess Diana on Biography.
Schultz never knew there were tunnels.
He didn't want to know, but you're missing the point of the story. A young entrepreneur engrossed in a Hogan's Heroes marathon neglects to ship an important package.
Did he know about the radio and the coffee pot?
He knew nothing. Now focus. Like a swallow returning to Capistrano, he instinctively heads to FedEx. They give his small business package the big business treatment. And another hobgoblin of success falls victim to FedEx efficiency.
What is a hobgoblin?
A gnome. A mean, angry gnome.
They say the new car has powers magical. They say once you sit inside, you turn into a different person. In this car, I wish to ride.
The all-new Lexus ES 300, a new world of luxury.
The magic's gone, isn't it? You need a table for two. And a bubble bath. And some champagne.
That'll work.
Marriott Come Out and Play rates make this a great weekend to rekindle the flame.
Can you make me irresistible? Yeah.
Call 1-800-MARRIOTT. Marriott Hotels, Resorts, and Suites. Your Marriott awaits.
The critics agree. Victoria and Albert is excellent.
You do not like her?
I do not know her. God save King Albert. It's so good, raves the New York Post. And USA Today calls it extremely entertaining. Are you happy?
Very happy.
Victoria and Albert, tonight on A&E. On the next Minute by Minute, July 17th, 1996, 8:18 p.m.
TWA 800 Center.
In 13 minutes, countless lives will be changed forever.
That was their plane.
She just started screaming.
Was it terrorism? We didn't know.
TWA Flight 800 on an all-new Minute by Minute, tomorrow on A&E.
If you can dip your hands into luminescent water, and houses are the colors of sherbet. If suddenly the breeze kisses you while you're being kissed, you're not dreaming. You're in Puerto Rico.
Keep the victim calm. And 1, and 2, and 3.
Okay, there you go. That's over 100 channels, sports, news, digital music. Installation's free, and it's only $31.99 a month.
Just $31.99 a month gets you over 100 channels of DirecTV programming. Right now with free professional installation.
So it was the digital music that... Yeah.
Diana, Princess of Wales, was married just 11 months when she gave birth to Prince William in June 1982.
It makes me feel a bit sick still when I see this, and I can't really believe that I never actually got back to take the picture myself. It was a very historic picture, and I think the worst thing I ever missed, really.
Don't talk to me about that day, because I was thinking of hiring a helicopter for me to get her there in time.
And the minute that it was on the radio that she'd gone into hospital, everybody rushed down to the Lindo wing and grabbed a spot. The news came, the baby'd been born, and then it sort of went into sort of a lull, because we all expected that she would probably stay in for days. And off I went home. Driving home, I turned the radio on. It said, oh, the Prince and Princess of Wales are about to leave the Lindo wing with their new baby, and I just sort of froze and thought, oh God, I felt sick. And I turned the car around and tried to get back there. You know, I wasn't that far away, but the traffic was bad. We're stuck in traffic again, aren't we? I drove round, there was all my colleagues and all my competitors walking away from the scene, winding their films back, looking all chuffed and smug. They'd got all these wonderful pictures. And my heart just sank, you know, I was so upset. I just got out of the car and burst into tears.
This picture was captured by another photographer who worked for Jane's father.
Well, years later, we were talking about the day she came out of hospital with William, and she was telling me it was very daunting, you know, coming out. She was still feeling really grotty, and all the photographers looking at her and how awful she felt. I said I got there and I missed the picture and I was crying in the street. She said, you weren't the only one crying, because I got in the car and as I drove around the corner I was crying too, because it was all too much. And so, you know, there we were. We both cried that day.
Young mother, new royal, and emerging fashion icon. Interest in Diana was unrelenting, but the lens's ability to mask the reality of the royal marriage was limited. There was a twist in the fairy tale, and the press had to be careful how they told it.
First of all, it was just that she was losing her baby weight and getting her figure back, so that was sort of accepted. But then she started looking very, very bony. As soon as she got out of the car, you think, oh, gosh, she looks so thin.
Pretty pictures of a happy couple, that was a nice story. The public wanted that. The public did not want to know that that fairy tale wedding, that it was all a sham. If you tell readers of national newspapers things they don't want to hear, they stop buying your newspaper.
The pictures spoke for themselves, but had to be presented to the public in a particular way.
I think one has to realize one uses a photograph for impact, but cushions it by saying, you know, we're so worried about her.
Newspaper suggestions that Diana might be ill were officially denied. Years later, she spoke more openly about the bulimia she suffered. In the meantime, she became the darling of the British fashion industry.
After she had Prince Harry, she started to get a lot more sort of adventurous in her clothes, big hair, lots of jewellery. It was all becoming more and more great for pictures, and the sort of fashion icon bit started to build up.
We didn't know very much about Diana. There weren't many stories to write about Diana, so her clothes were very important. But in the meantime, it gave us great copy and great pictures.
In the early days, if a magazine just put Diana on the cover, even a headshot, it would sell, full stop, without a story behind it. You could fill pages and pages with the outfits, back views, side views.
You were desperate to get the new hat at the right angles. The evening dresses we loved, you would say, right, okay, what I need is I need a good fashion shot, I need a good cover shot, I need a good jewellery shot maybe. So you'd go full length, half length, close up. You'd have this routine you would do, you'd shoot with a routine so that you make sure you've got what you need, because you know that's what they're going to ask for, your customers are going to ask for, and the magazine editors are going to ask for.
People would be doing books on Diana's dresses, books on Diana's hats. Diana used to get off a plane or get out of a car at some event, and there'd be a secretary there giving you a piece of paper saying this dress was made by such and such a designer, the hat is made by this designer, and it's trimmed in this and it's done in that. It was a massive industry, just this one woman. And I think she didn't realise half the time anyway herself. She used to sort of say bets with her policeman when she'd turn up in the job. I wonder how many photographers would be at a day, and he'd say 20. She'd say no, 10. And there'd be 30.
The designers who dressed Diana knew their creations would be in the spotlight.
You know that that hat has to look good because it's going to be seen by millions. And of course, one thing about the Princess of Wales, she did more or less play to millions. She really became a fashion icon in the sense that she was always wearing something new and exciting. And the press wanted to photograph her. You couldn't do the same thing twice.
Every time she went to a country, she'd obviously think in advance about something she could wear that would sort of honour or have a theme to the country she was visiting. And this was a great example of it in Japan, when she wore a dress that had the rising sun on, exactly like the Japanese flag she was standing next to. I think she was doing it for the photographers. But I mean, she probably thought the host would like it too, but probably for the photographers more than anything. It was guaranteed to be on the front page the next day.
But the type of publicity Diana generated wasn't always what the royal family wanted.
It became such a big problem for Prince Charles that he stopped us getting information about the clothes. And the pretext was that he was looking after her image and he wanted her to be more serious. But I think the truth was actually that he just didn't like all this attention paid to her. He thought it was frivolous, and it upstaged him.
But her clothes and the interest they provoked were becoming very useful to Diana.
On one occasion, we were talking about her forthcoming French trip that was going to be very high profile. And she said, oh, you know, the trouble is I can't speak French. You know, I'm really thick, I can't speak French. But she said, but I've decided what I'll do instead, and they won't notice, is I'll dress from head to toe in Chanel when I step off the plane, and no one will notice that I don't understand or speak the language because they'll all be looking at what I'm wearing. And she did. She stepped off the plane and there it was, head to toe in Chanel. The French loved it. They were raving about it, and nobody commented about her not speaking French.
In the full thrust of the so-called War of the Waleses, fashion was Diana's weapon. And this picture, in a dress designed by Christina Stambolian, was one of her greatest victories. When she bought the dress in 1991, she had reservations.
She loved the idea. I knew it. She liked to think of herself wearing that dress. That's why she was laughing quite a lot and giggling. But at the same time, she knew she wasn't going to be able to because of the family she was coming from.
3 years later, in 1994, when Charles admitted his adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles in a television interview, Diana appeared in public wearing the dress for the first time. Her fears of royal disapproval had vanished.
We'd never seen her in a dress like that before. Not that daring or that short.
And it was amazing, you know, to see her in so many photographs. Every newspaper had Diana on the front. I was going through a very bad patch in my professional life because the company I was working for 20 years had to close down. And suddenly Diana decided to wear that dress. And all these fears and problems I had disappears altogether.
There's no doubt about it. She definitely used her clothes as a tool to portray a visual image or mood or a particular time of her life. And just by dressing in something, she could do that quite easily without having to say a word, which was quite a powerful tool, really, when you think about it.
You are watching Princess Diana on Biography.
For her hair, there's shampoo. For her blanket, there's detergent. For her playground, there's Dirt Devil's new Platinum Force line. Whether it's the bagless upright or shampooer, their patented designs achieve a suction power greater than the cleaning world has ever seen. Let's face it, eventually you'll have to put her down. Now with such force, nothing escapes the power of a Dirt Devil.
It responds to the power of your voice. It lets you focus on the road ahead.
OnStar personal calling.
Call Commissioner Gordon. With the safety of hands-free dialing, you can concentrate on more important things, like driving.
Gordon here.
I'm on my way. You could win a walk-on part in the next Batman movie or an OnStar-equipped vehicle. Go to OnStar.com.
You strive for perfection in the kitchen. Wield highly precise instruments. Test things 500,000 times. Work with tolerances of less than 1,000th of an inch. You could be making a Delta faucet. Precisely crafted and relentlessly refined, Delta faucets achieve perfection in the kitchen. Even if you can't. Delta, beautifully engineered.
On the next Minute by Minute, July 17th, 1996, 8:18 p.m.
EWA 800 Center.
In 13 minutes, countless lives will be changed forever.
That was their plane.
She just started screaming.
Was it terrorism? We didn't know.
TWA Flight 800 on an all-new Minute by Minute, tomorrow on A&E.
Describe our carpet fit your life just beautifully.
Diana, the Princess of Wales, was the main source of income for a large number of photographers, including Jane Fincher, whose family business supplied pictures on a freelance basis to magazines. In the thick of the competition, everyone was under pressure to deliver the best shot.
Princess, whatever she did, was news. I remember going up to Scotland and getting her being blown as she was going into church and being windswept, and getting an hysterical row with the editor because I was late getting the pictures back. No fault of mine, you know, it was a problem with planes and things. And him screaming at me saying, "This is the most important woman in the world, you know, I've got to have these pictures." And so the pressure was all the time on you, but not to just get the pictures, but to get them back, to get the editions.
During the peak of Diana fever in the 1980s, the princess watched the press antics from a safe distance.
As much as we spent our lives looking at her for 17 years, she spent her life looking at us. So, I mean, we were a great source of entertainment, watching us all tripping over and pushing each other and all vying for a spot of land with our ladder. I mean, if you stood back and watched it, it's a very funny scene, and she would often be in the hysterics watching us.
As the only woman in the pack, Jane had to hold her own against her male colleagues.
To them, I was just one of the boys, and they treated me as such. Right, they didn't punch me, but they pushed me and, you know, jostled me out of the way, and I think they just forgot I was a female, really, and I didn't try to ask any favours, but I found it very hard to carry as much equipment as they did, so they would always have probably better equipment because they could carry more than I could.
Being a woman sometimes worked in Jane's favour, especially on trips to the Gulf states.
To sort of have a woman doing my role was quite unusual. They were quite interested to see me working with all the men, but they weren't quite sure how to handle me, particularly when it came to a push and shove. At a particular event where Diana was being presented with an Arab robe and it was going to be a very good picture, and they were pushing all the photographers back and they were in the wrong angle, and I sort of slipped out and moved around the side, and the security men didn't stop me or do anything. They just sort of, well, she's a lady, so let her go.
To beat the competition, it paid to keep up with the latest technology. Jane was the first to try out autofocus lenses in Canada in 1991 when Diana was reunited with her sons aboard the Royal Yacht. The result was a photographic scoop.
To follow it with a normal camera with a lens was very difficult because she moved quite quickly and the light wasn't good, and it was everything technically was against you. This autofocus just loved it. It just locked on her and followed her all the way along, and boom, that one shot.
She had spotted the photographers, no doubt about that, and she had her arms outraised as she rushed along the deck. That went round the world, that photograph. And of course, 2 seconds later, Prince Charles got there and hugged his boys, but nobody ever saw those pictures. Nobody cared. Diana was always the story. Always, always.
I remember doing some nice pictures at a polo match with Charles and Harry once. And they were lovely pictures, very sweet, very tender, but no one ever used them. They weren't so interested in it because it was him.
Jane photographed the family at their country home, Highgrove House, for the prince's official 40th birthday. He was pictured as the loving father of a happy family.
The strange thing was, you know, it's supposed to be at the point when everything had gone wrong in their lives and their marriage was over, but, you know, and I can never get over this, that they just seemed really together. There was no jibing each other, there was a lot of laughter, a lot of contact. It didn't seem like they were acting or on just sort of giving me a performance.
At the time, journalist Andrew Morton was researching the book that would smudge the image of this happy family.
I remember Andrew ringing me up. He was one of the journalists that rang me up and said, oh, I hear you've been at Highgrove, and, you know, was it really awful atmosphere between them, and you know, their marriage is on the rocks. And I said, oh, no, I don't think you're right, Andrew. I think you've got it right. Their marriage isn't on the rocks. I'm the one that's been there having a drink and watching them and sitting there and talking to them, not you. I'm right, you know, there's nothing wrong with their marriage. I couldn't have been further from the truth.
Morton's explosive book was published 4 years after those 40th birthday portraits. And shortly after, the princess posed alone in front of the world's greatest monument to love, the Taj Mahal. Observers thought that the media-savvy princess was preparing the public for the shocking revelations to come. Jane believes that the role played by the press that day at the Taj Mahal is often overlooked.
I think it was probably more of a press manipulation that day. It was a good story, a good line, and the journalists put it together. I think it was, you know, blown up to suit the story of the day, really.
When Charles visited the Taj Mahal in 1980, before the marriage, he told the press he'd like to bring his wife here one day. But on that day, in 1992, he had another engagement. The palace wanted some of the press to accompany the prince. But the story was Diana, and the shot was Diana, on her own, in front of the Taj Mahal.
The photographers instigated that. We didn't want her sitting there with all hundreds of officials, and we didn't want anyone else in the picture. We just wanted her for that classic Indian picture. One more. She wasn't going to sit there on her own because of the marriage. It was because we were pressing to get that picture. The other bit that everybody always comments on is when she went off and sat on a bench in the far corner. I think it was a simple logistics thing because she knew that we had to get back to a position down there because she'd been told that we wanted the picture of her walking towards us. She was obviously, you know, briefed to hang back a little bit, and everybody sort of said that she went there to sort of think about her marriage, but I think that was just the spin of the day.
Both the press and the princess knew how to manipulate her image. 4 months after the photo op at the Taj Mahal, the publication of Andrew Morton's book showed beyond a doubt that the royal marriage was deeply unhappy. Jane had been approached about the book. The publishers asked her if she'd like to do a private photo session with the princess.
I was astounded. I thought, Andrew Morton and Diana, this is a very strange combination, but I thought, well, you know, if she's agreed to do it, then I'll agree to do it. I'm quite happy to do it. So I said, yes, I'll do it. And we planned that it would be done in a few weeks and that they would get in touch with me and we would decide what sort of pictures we'd do, and we'd try and do some nice informal ones at home. And so I was very excited, drove home very excited about this project, but obviously I had to keep it absolutely hush-hush. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. And then eventually I got a phone call from the publishers saying, oh no, you know, it's a change of plans now. You don't need to come and do any photographs. We're still doing the book, but we've got some photographs from somewhere else.
Photographs from a specially arranged shoot would have revealed the princess's direct involvement with the book.
It was really difficult not to tell anyone that I knew because, you know, there's all this controversy going on about in the newspapers about did she help or didn't she help. And I knew that she was directly talking to them about the book, so there was no question about it.
In the wake of the book, Jane received more and more requests for pictures of the unhappy couple.
This was a classic example of how picture editing can suit the story of the day. You know, it was in Italy and they were very happy on that trip and the pictures were very happy. And at the time, photographs of them smiling were used widely. But then years later, when the sort of marriage had broken up and people were looking for pictures of them looking grumpy, they used this picture that came out the archive. In fact, she's actually adjusting her sunglasses. She's not being grumpy at all, but, You know, it's an example of how you can sort of choose the picture to suit the mood, really. The camera does lie.
But on the couple's last official tour in November 1992 to Korea, there was no need for the camera to lie.
There was a banquet where she sort of yawned and looked as if she wanted to go to sleep, and all the time Prince Charles was doing his speech, she was looking fed up, bored, you know, totally upstaging him. She didn't want to be there, and she wanted us all to know it.
A month later, the couple formally separated. With her position as future queen compromised, Diana was set to redefine her public role.
For the web's best bios, log on to biography.com.
In and out. Good. Keep the victim calm. And 1, and 2, and 3.
Okay, there you go. That's over 100 channels, sports, news, digital music. Installation's free, and it's only $31.99 a month.
Just $31.99 a month gets you over 100 channels of DirecTV programming. Right now with free professional installation.
So it was the digital music that... Yeah.
She wore white? She put her past behind her. But you're missing the point of the story. The groom's father-in-law hires him to run the mismanaged shipping department of the family business.
No honeymoon?
A week in Oahu.
That's nice.
Not bad, but keep up. The kid turns to FedEx Ground. They give him affordable nationwide B2B delivery with a money-back guarantee. And he gives Daddy Dearest a high-quality, low-cost lesson in who's the boss.
Who is the boss?
The kid.
The kid is now the boss?
The kid is now the boss.
That's the story?
That's it.
Every car has its moment. This one has thousands per second. The new BMW 3 Series.
Your pet's exact same heartworm and flea medications delivered to your door for less than you're paying now.
It costs less than buying from my veterinarian.
Took less than 5 minutes to order. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to miss work.
Now I call PetMeds and get my pet's heartworm medication delivered right to my door.
The exact same flea and tick medications you get from your vet.
Only they're cheaper.
1-888-PET-MEDS. We deliver savings and convenience on HeartGuard, Advantage, Frontline, and all other pet medications. Call to order now or order online.
Every day, AmeriDebt helps more people with money problems.
My credit card debt was outrageous. Then I called AmeriDebt. They contacted my creditors and got my payments almost cut in half.
AmeriDebt is a non-profit organization that offers free consultations to consumers seeking to eliminate their debt.
Every month I pay our credit card bills, but the balances never seem to get smaller.
AmeriDebt got our interest rates reduced, and now the balances are dropping dramatically.
Join the thousands of people who have turned their financial lives around. Call 1-800-847-7200.
The critics agree. Victoria and Albert is excellent.
You do not like her?
I do not know her. God save King Albert. It's so good, raves the New York Post. And USA Today calls it extremely entertaining. Are you happy?
Very happy.
Victoria and Albert, tonight on A&E.
Our new dish, the San Marino, is so popular that people want to meet us. Aldo is good at this. It makes me uncomfortable. It is better when I let the chicken and shrimp speak for me.
Tender grilled chicken and shrimp come together with a creamy herb sauce to create the San Marino. Romano's Macaroni Grill, run by chefs. That explains our food.
Ford is offering 0% financing on everything. Ford drives America, and right now, we're leading the way with America's best sellers and America's best values. 0% on everything, including Ford Escape, Ford Explorer, Ford Expedition, and the #1 selling truck in the world, Ford F-Series. 0% means you pay no interest, and that will save you thousands. Act now. Ford drives America. Visit your Southern Nevada Ford stores today.
A year after her separation from Prince Charles, Diana announced her decision to resign from public life. The pressure of being in the spotlight, she said, had become too much.
This picture really did sum up the story of the day. You know, there she is with her head down, looking unhappy, And she's a battery of photographers behind her, every lens trained on her for every move. You didn't have to write anything to go with that picture.
If Diana thought she could switch the media interest in her off, she was wrong. The paparazzi were desperate for pictures and followed her everywhere. And with palace security gone, at her own request, Diana was not properly protected. One good snap of the princess was worth a fortune.
It was a very lucrative business for paparazzis. They could make hundreds of thousands of pounds with the right shot in one day. So it attracted a lot of people to spend, you know, they could afford to spend the time just waiting for that one shot, and you wouldn't have to do any more work for another year.
Jane didn't want to be part of it.
I was very disillusioned with the job, very disillusioned with some of my colleagues, and I felt quite bitter in a way that some of them had pulled my job down to that level.
Jane refused to photograph the princess unless the cameras were specifically invited, as they were to certain public events, particularly charity visits. Although Diana said she was withdrawing from royal duties, she continued as patron of more than 100 charities. She knew she could turn the media interest in her into something positive for others. She hired a voice coach to help her. His first task was to write a speech on eating disorders, which Diana's officials were nervous about.
Her staff felt that she had to sort of keep her head down and work within. Whereas I suppose, to an extent, my attitude was, you know, why are we doing a speech on bulimia if you don't want her to talk about it?
Diana chose to make a stand and began the speech with what was, in effect, a personal admission that she had been a bulimia victim.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have it on very good authority that the quest for perfection our society demands can leave the individual gasping for breath at every turn.
And it was like I got it, and she phoned me up later that afternoon. She said, I'm lying on the bed and I just feel so good. I don't know what to do with this feeling. I said, just bloody remember it. This feeling that you've got now, this is who you really are. This is what you're about for the future.
It was a lesson well learned. In October 1995, Diana visited the Institute of Conductive Education. Jane was one of the photographers invited to be there. The princess's guide for part of her visit was 10-year-old Lawrence Chambers, a child with cerebral palsy.
I spotted that little boy right from the beginning of the visit because he was quite a character.
The moment when the princess gave Lawrence a goodbye hug made the photographer's day. Newspapers used the picture to provide a new angle on the royal story, Charles and Diana's failed marriage.
Immediately afterwards, Lawrence was mobbed by the press, and they say, what did she say? And she said something like, according to Lawrence, I don't get many hugs like that nowadays.
This image came to epitomize the princess's need for affection. It set her apart from the rest of the royal family and was published throughout the world to illustrate the extraordinary effect she had on her adoring public. With a growing awareness of her potential, Diana was about to take greater control of her life, both personal and professional.
I think Diana in the mid-90s was not, early to mid-90s, was not really sure how best to use her skills, her talent, the media interest in her. I know from conversations with her over the years, she got increasingly concerned about not wanting to be seen as simply the glamorous part of a fundraising event, the clothes horse for the latest designer dresses, because she felt she had more to offer.
In November 1995, Diana gave a shocking television interview in which she talked frankly about her failed marriage. She also said, though she wouldn't want to be Queen of England, she wanted to be queen of people's hearts.
By creating space from the palace, she was sort of treading new ground. I mean, new ground for her and for an awful lot of other people.
My best memory of her feeling that she had found the right niche was on the trip to Angola, where she went not as a member of the royal household. I know, traveling in the Land Cruiser on one occasion, you know, she expressed that This was what she wanted to do in the future. This was how she wanted to work. She'd done her homework. She knew why she was there. She knew what information she needed to get a hold of so that she could say the right thing when she got back.
The last charity event at which Jane photographed Diana was a visit to the London Lighthouse, a center for HIV patients.
She created a very new attitude towards people with HIV, especially among families, friends, partners, that it was perfectly all right to show affection, perfect right to care for them. They needed someone to put their arms around them, and Diana was prepared to do it.
AIDS became so high profile because of her. She put a sort of heart into it and really worked hard for them, and I think it paid off. The profile's gone down so much since she hasn't been there. You don't see it every week in the magazines anymore like you did when she was alive.
The princess's ability to focus attention on worthy causes went hand in hand with a media obsession with her private and family life. Diana's main concern was always her children. It was for their sake that she was soon to take an unprecedented action against the paparazzi.
It responds to the power of your voice. It lets you focus on the road ahead.
OnStar personal calling.
Call Commissioner Gordon. With the safety of hands-free dialing, you can concentrate on more important things, like driving.
Gordon here.
I'm on my way. You could win a walk-on part in the next Batman movie or an OnStar-equipped vehicle. Go to OnStar.com.
Hey, when was your last family weekend? Go sightseeing, attend a ball game, visit a theme park, and, you know, quality family time. You don't want your kids to grow up to be weirdos, do you?
No.
You have a great day.
Residence Inn come out and play rates make this a great weekend for a family getaway.
My name is Alice. I live in the palace.
Call 1-800-MARRIOTT. Residence Inn. Your Marriott awaits.
Schultz never knew there were tunnels. He didn't want to know, but you're missing the point of the story. A young entrepreneur engrossed in a Hogan's Heroes marathon neglects to ship an important package. Did he know about the radio and the coffee pot? He knew nothing. Now focus. Like a swallow returning to Capistrano, he instinctively heads to FedEx. They give his small business package the big business treatment, and another hobgoblin of success falls victim to FedEx efficiency. What is a hobgoblin? A gnome. A mean, angry gnome.
All done.
Yay! So what should we do for dinner?
Do you know what I've been dreaming about?
No.
An incredible beef stew with carrots, potatoes, tender beef slowly simmered for hours to bring out all the flavor.
No problem.
There's something new from Stouffer's. Slow Fire Classics. Slow simmered recipes so hearty they can only be served in a bowl.
Is this what you were dreaming about?
You're good. You're good.
New Slow Fire Classics from Stouffer's.
Now you can subscribe to Biography magazine for over 50% off the newsstand price. 12 issues for only $21.97. Call 1-800-901-2233 to order Biography magazine.
Over the years, Diana posed willingly for the cameras with her boys, Princes William and Harry. Photographers had never been able to capture such intimate images of a royal mother with her children.
I thought she was raising the status of motherhood, which was very, denigrated in our society. And she was good copy. She provided us with great stories, and she was unlike the rest of the royal family.
Whether the cameras were on her or weren't on her, she was good with the children. She was always touching them, fiddling with their hair. So that obviously always looked very good in pictures.
But the clamor for pictures became too much. William, in particular, started to resent the presence of the cameras. Diana resolved to protect her boys from the press intrusion that had become part of her daily life.
We had this conversation many times where she would say, I can deal with it to some extent, but I really, really don't like it when the children are around. She was very protective mother hen. She didn't want the children to go through that.
In April 1997, Diana's lawyers called Jane, asking her to come in and talk about a case they were preparing against the paparazzi on the princess's behalf.
I think she was getting very worried about the situation, with having this constant harassment from a core of photographers with her and the children.
As a parent, could I ask you to respect my children's space?
Well, it would have involved her being in the witness box in a law court, which no member of the royal family's ever done. It would have opened up a lot of debate. It would have opened up a lot of questions. I mean, you know, both on her side and on the other side.
Diana was risking a media backlash, and Jane risked being seen as a turncoat.
I felt very strongly about it, and I wanted it to be sorted out, and I wanted to have a professional standing back again for the photographers that are working in the royal circuit, and I just thought maybe it was a way of helping.
But that summer, Diana whipped the paparazzi into a frenzy as she embarked on her very public affair with Dodi Fayed. The court case was soon to become irrelevant. On August 31st, 1997, the fatal car accident amid a scramble of photographers took place in Paris. In the week that followed, Jane had a difficult decision to make.
I didn't want to photograph the funeral. I just thought the whole photographer thing too, the uncomfortable position of being seen as a photographer at that event, and me myself, I just felt sick. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to have another camera in front of anything to do with Diana. I didn't want to be seen as part of it.
I said, we've got to cover this funeral, Jane. It's an important occasion. We've covered her when she first came on the scene. And it is the end of a story and an end of an event, a bit of history.
Jane was persuaded to change her mind. The day of the funeral was one she'll never forget.
The thing that I remember mostly is the sound. It's so noisy today, and all the aeroplanes and the cars going by and the people. And I think forevermore I'll remember that absolute hush. I never ever want to do another day's work like that ever again. The whole thing was like a sort of dream, really. I mean, I couldn't think it was her, you know. I kept thinking back to, I can't think of her in a coffin and being dead. She was such a live, vibrant person. I couldn't relate to it at all. I think the point really that really upset me the most was the moment when William and Harry and Charles arrived at the Abbey, and they were there standing in front of me, albeit at a slight distance. I felt quite intrusive, looking down my lens at them. They were in such grief, and I felt my heart went out to them. It was just such an awful moment to actually see the boys in front of me, and I just sort of had flashbacks of all the lovely times that I'd photographed them. You know, it just all came sort of like, you know, when you say you're drowning and everything flashes by in your life, but it was a bit like that. When I was sort of looking at them through my lens, I kept thinking of all those times when I'd seen them as little and her touching them and all that sort of stuff.
The strength of public grief shown at Diana's funeral surprised many.
I was probably more prepared for the reaction. Around the world, I'd seen the huge draw that she had with people. I'd seen people's reaction, you know, completely get hysterical if she'd touched their hand or whatever. So, you know, I think I was more prepared for those sort of scenes.
But she wasn't prepared for the degree of hostility she and her fellow photographers would face.
I remember getting up on the stand. The public was sort of looking at me, sort of look of venom, you know. I felt really, I felt like wearing a t-shirt saying, I'm not a paparazzi, I didn't upset her, you know, I wasn't involved. You know, because I just felt, you could feel the hatred from the people. I really, you know, I think perhaps I'm exaggerating, but I really did feel it, this hostility.
Diana's death transformed the media's relationship with the royal family and the public.
The aftermath of her death was horrendous for all the press, and to turn so viciously on us to say, you printed photographs of her with her children, that was intrusive, that was what they wanted. And the reason people thought they knew Diana personally was because Diana lived her feelings openly. And that is why they bought magazines and newspapers. She had a incredible impact on people, and that will never be forgotten.
I suppose it is quite haunting, her image, to me. I think her image is very vivid in my mind still. Looking back, you realise what sort of part you were playing, really, in her and in the history of it. You know, it was actually quite exciting to be part of that. It's something to tell your grandchildren, isn't it, that you were part of this huge icon's life.
Earlier this year, a new project was announced, a rose garden to be built in Diana's memory. Not just any rose garden, but one costing more than $30 million. The plans were put on hold when it was discovered that an American woman behind the idea stood to make more than $7 million in fees. Meanwhile, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, recently appeared in court, charged with stealing hundreds of items from her apartment. Burrell says he was just trying to preserve Diana's dignity by keeping her possessions from being sold. 4 years after her death, people are still fighting over the princess and her cherished image. Coming up next, the A&E original movie, Victoria and Albert, a royal love story that is both touching and true. The torrid love affair of Victoria and Albert next on A&E. For Biography, I'm Joan London. Good night.